very pleased to introduce you to my guest, a certified ethical hacker and IFSEC Global Top 20 Most Influential People in Cybersecurity, Terry Cutler. Thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Any better, and I couldn't handle it.
Great. As many of you know, Terry is founder of Cyology Labs, a cyber defense firm based in Montreal. Tell us more about Cyology Labs.
Sure. As you mentioned, we're based out of Montreal. Some of our clients are multi-billion-dollar corporations. So we specialize in things like cybersecurity audits, phishing simulation and awareness training, incident response, because we're also a CrowdStrike partner. And we also offer monitoring service where we can keep an eye on insider threats for some of our clients.
Yes, and that's the need of the time, continuous monitoring of what's going on in your organization.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, because a lot of these companies don't have the time, resources, or budget to actually get that done themselves in-house. So or the biggest comment I hear is, well, I have an IT guy, I've got it covered. And when you think of IT, you got to think of them as your family doctor, right? Would you ever ask your family doctor to perform laser eye surgery on you? And most people would say no. So this is where a cybersecurity expert would come in and complement them.
Yes. And today's talk is mainly focused on cybersecurity for small and medium businesses. And as we know, small businesses, they have less cybersecurity infrastructure in place. And as you said, one IT guy wearing multiple hats, as compared to large organizations where they have a full team and people having different roles. And we all know cyber criminals and hackers have been targeting small and medium-sized business with increasing frequency. And we have seen a massive increase in the attacks in past few months. So what are the three biggest threats facing small or medium business?
Right. And that's an excellent point you bring up. Most companies of this size, small, medium businesses, they believe, oh, who's going to want to hack us? We're small fish. They want the big guys. But they don't realize that the small businesses are the number one target right now, because they use them because, again, they know that they have no resources, budget, or time to look into cybersecurity. So they're hacking these small businesses and using them to attack a large corporation. Now, these customers, these small business customers, they don't realize the impact when there's a data breach that happens. So, for example, one of the things that they should be looking out for is preparing for a ransomware attack. Now, most companies don't realize that when they get hit with a ransomware attack, that they're down for a minimum of 100 hours. Okay, they don't realize that it's down. Like nothing works for a good 100 hours. And during this time, none of their employees can work. Their IT guys are working around the clock. They're going to have a law firm involved for taking care of what's called a breach coach. They're going to have to bring in a cybersecurity, an incident response firm to help them clean up the mess and help them reorganize the infrastructure. And during this time, the bill is still running. So a lot of times I've seen customers where their bill raises from several $100,000 a month to $1.2 million in fees. It goes very, very, very quickly. Yeah, it's huge. They don't realize it. And once they felt the impact of a data breach or a ransomware, then it's like, what do you need to do to make sure this does not happen to us again? So, when we're coming up to them saying, how about we just do an audit for a couple of $1,000s? No, we'll look at that in Q4. Or they didn't have money. But all of a sudden, the moment they get hit with a ransomware, the checkbooks fly open. Yes. They cannot afford to get this again.
Yes. And like you said, small businesses, they house both transactional data and consumer data. So a very easy attack on a small business leads to expose of other businesses, other large corporations as well.
Yeah.
And with COVID-19 and new digital capabilities kicking off, data is more exposed than ever.
Of course. There was a story that came out a couple of months ago. There was over 445 million cyber attacks since January on small businesses and home remote users because of COVID. So they don't realize that the home users are more susceptible now because they're not behind the security of their corporate firewall anymore. So when they click on these links and they're VPN'd into the company remotely, well, the ransomware is going to infect the company's data because of the home user.
Yes.
So phishing attacks are the number one way that hackers are getting in.
Yes, and many times we don't even realize that we take advantage of our home computer to access our
Yeah.
work system, and this poses a great threat. And we have seen cyber attacks, it continues to grow. So what's the impact of a cyber attack on small business?
It's again, it's because when they get attacked, it's that downtime. Their
Mhm.
businesses are completely out of commission, and the impact, they may think that, oh, it's a hacker that did this, but it could also be an insider threat. It could be their own employee, somebody
Yes.
that just had way too much access.
Yeah.
So what we've seen with a large bank here in Montreal, one person was able to pull out 4 million accounts,
Mhm.
right, and tried to sell it, if I remember correctly, but he had access to it. So people are thinking, oh, how can one person have so much access? Because there's not enough internal auditing being done to spot these weaknesses.
True, and employees are the weakest link, and we have seen like so many incidents happening because of a disgruntled employee or because of lack of training given to employees so that they know what are the best practices and common pitfalls to avoid. Like you mentioned, phishing attack.
The the other thing too with the new ransomwares that are coming out, um, a lot of times, so when you get hit with a ransomware, you're gonna have two options. It's either pay the ransom to get your data back as quickly as possible, or two, restore from backup. And if your backups are encrypted, you're in a lot of trouble. So you gotta make sure you have another offsite backup that's recoverable, but then you might be months old,
Yeah.
right? So you're gonna, a lot of times companies will be in a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation, because if they don't pay the ransom, it might cost them more money to recover with their own in-house team than it would be to pay the ransom to get operational again.
Yes.
So what's happening now with the ransomware is that if they're able to encrypt you and they have access to your data, a lot of times they're able to siphon out your data, and they're saying, if you don't pay the ransom, we're going to leak this data to the world, and now you're going to be out of compliance. So if you're doing business in Europe, for example, they're going to say, we're going to leak this information to the world, and you're not going to be GDPR compliant, and you're going to get massive fines. So pay us now or pay later,
And all these ties to new policies should be applicable, like you said, in terms of backup. Keep backup at different locations, on-site, off-site, so that you don't run into such situations. So all this ties into new policies and new norms of
Yeah.
doing business. And like you said, data, which is the key thing. So
Yeah.
data breaches, huge impact, but for a small business, it's a huge brand damage and then unreliable partners. So your consumers are forced to do business elsewhere.
Well, not just that. There was a study that also came out that said most small businesses will never recover within 6 months of a cyber attack.
Okay,
So
yes.
they may even close their doors forever.
Yes, yes. And if there's no plan and they haven't planned such, yes, they'll be out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the record, those of you watching, you might be thinking, well, how much could a ransomware possibly cost?
Mhm.
Well, some of the starting bids starting at $300,000 to get your data back.
Yes, and
So
that's huge,
yeah,
huge for a small business.
it's
And
not
that's,
$500.
yeah,
It's
that's not
hundreds of
happening.
thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And you're paying some criminal somewhere in the world because he's hiding his tracks, and you're paying him through an untraceable currency called Bitcoin.
Yes. Yes. So how a small business can protect themselves from a data hack?
So what's happening is cyber criminals are after sensitive data that are stored inside your small business's databases, things like credit card data, social insurance numbers of your clients and their data, right? And there was even another study that was done where most small businesses are only spending about $1,000 a year on cybersecurity. So most companies think that, oh, well, I have an antivirus, I have firewall, I have encryption, I'm safe. And it's
Yes.
not the case, okay? Because cyber criminals were able to bypass this traditional security. And then once they're in your company, you have no detection technology in place that would allow you to detect that there's a hacker there, which is why they're in your system for 6 to 18 months prior to being detected. So there's a lot of things we gotta look at. The first thing you need to do is look to get an audit done, because a lot of companies don't even know what they have. They didn't realize that they have employees that left the company 3 years ago and their accounts are still active. We find all this stuff. So, like for example, we have a service that you guys can learn more on. It's you can find out more at cyologylabs.com/report card, and there's some free stuff on there. You want to make sure you develop an incident response plan. So if there is a data breach that happens, you're able to detect it, but you're also able to respond to that breach. How are you going to recover that data if it's gone? Do you have the right connections in place, like with your law firm? You have cyber insurance. Most companies don't know that. So there's also things like awareness training you got to look at. The user is the weakest link in all of this.
Yes.
And if they're not properly trained, they're just going to click on any links they want and possibly get you infected. Because in their mind, they think, oh, well, my company has everything in place to protect me in case I make this mistake. And we find out that most companies don't have this stuff in place.
Yes. Yes. So it's like investing in a reliable security policies and system altogether.
Yeah.
Because what we have commonly seen, small businesses make mistake of assuming it would happen to them. And they forget basic preventative measures.
Yeah.
They manage everything on their own, and they don't invest in training and a proper and a reliable security system.
That's
like
it.
Audit, a simple user account audit.
Yeah.
Can help and save them from a cyber attack or a compromise.
And that's what's funny is like that report card I mentioned earlier that we offer. We actually, the price of that offer starts at less than what they spend per year.
Yes.
and an audit like that would save them hundreds of thousands of dollars once they fix everything up, because a lot of times they don't even realize that their patch management system is broken. Yeah. And there's some patches that haven't been applied, which would facilitate a ransomware attack and get them encrypted.
Yes.
So they don't realize what they have. Another thing they're not doing properly is encrypting their sensitive data. So if they're housing their customers' data in their environment, that data should be encrypted. So this way, if it goes out, then the cyber criminals won't be able to decrypt it without that key.
Yes.
That's one thing they're not doing enough of. And the final thing I would probably think about is looking at how much access is actually given to your employees. So limit the amount of access they have. Do they need to have access to the whole database or the whole thing? There's ways to lock this stuff down.
Yes, and those are really useful insights, because giving the right access to right people with right set of permissions. And many times we have seen all our admin using shared accounts or our favorite password combination, admin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We still, and that's another thing too. When we do what's called a penetration test, we look for these default passwords. And a perfect example of that, actually, you might think that you've configured a switch, for example, in the web GUI. You changed the password from admin to whatever it is, but you didn't change another service like SSH, which is another service which requires you to change that password there too. So I'm able to get into the switch via admin, but via another port.
Yes. And thank you for emphasizing on audits, which are really useful and prevent such incidents. And it's not about if we get hacked, it's all about when they get hacked.
Yeah.
So it's better to invest in cybersecurity practices rather than paying for ransomware.
Correct. Yeah. And make sure you have a good disaster recovery plan in place. Make sure your backups are protected. Make 2 or 3 copies of your data at all times. So this way, if there is a ransomware and you have to completely trash the environment, at least you'll get up a lot quicker than without it.
And helps reduce the downtime as well. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Those were really useful insights, and I'm sure many small and medium-sized business will benefit from this. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.